And again, we continued to ask this question about defunding police. One of our viewers, Jason DeRusso, responded to our question on Facebook saying this, quote, "It should be reallocated to funding of programs that take the place of the police, such as homelessness and mental health." Again, on top of the mental stress that many of these officers are dealing with on a daily basis, many are now having to navigate what it actually means to be black and blue.
It's an interesting conversation we're about to have, so let's bring in Ch3 Hurd, who is a retired police sergeant and a licensed family therapist. Hello to you.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you for being here. I do want you to explain to folks the conflict, if you feel there is any, of being not only a black man, but a police officer as well, especially in this time we're living in right now.
I mean, there's multiple conflicts. I mean, it's not just about being black or being blue. The conflicts are about doing a job that becomes difficult for you to mentally balance out every day. So you're asked to be a part of a community, but then you're also asked to enforce the laws. If you're a black person enforcing those laws, some people may feel a certain way about you. If you're enforcing those laws with other people who look like you, they may feel like you're a traitor, but you still have to do your job for the order of things. But unfortunately, the mental health aspect for law enforcement is extremely tough because there's only so many times you can pull a kid that's deceased out of a pool or respond to a family fight multiple times and then walk away from that circumstance and be okay, only to know that it's going to happen again. So there's some stressors involved. And for our minority officers, going back home and hearing your family have to deal with those circumstances and you have to explain both sides of the story. It's hard to gel within people exactly what that really means to you. So there's some anguish and some conflict with that as well.
You know, Ch3, over the past couple of months, we've heard this phrase, toxic culture, within a police department. And I'm curious, from your perspective, being a black police officer, can you talk to us a little bit about what exactly that toxic culture is? Have you ever experienced it, being a black police officer?
Yes, I'm not going to deny, and I'm not going to name names, but I did have to get a federal EEOC discrimination complaint filed to mitigate some circumstances on my end where some officers were in fear of me, and I can't assume it was anything other than for being who I am. And it was difficult because the way I was dealt with was different than other officers were being dealt with that are not minority. So I had to kind of make that known at the time that that's not okay. And once that was put in place, things worked out pretty much fine. But it still exists. There's a different way that people are handled, whether you're a friend of the organization or if you are an outsider or if you're a minority. It depends on the circumstances within. So that toxicity that exists is how people treat you based on how you fit into what they feel your blue level is.
Wow,
and it's unfortunate because, again, I'm black before I'm blue.
Right.
And then when I leave doing my job, I'm back to being black. So I'm not very blue.
Wow. So from your space, you are retired, correct?
Correct.
What do you feel, if you feel this way, do you think there are a lot of wrongs being done by police from where you sit as a retired officer now? And if you do, what are they?
I mean, the wrong is in this. We talked about it earlier. I heard it earlier in the segment, and we heard it last session. To ask police officers to do more than they're equipped or required to do is difficult. So, for instance, because I was a child and family therapist in Chicago before I came here and became a law enforcement officer, I have a background in this kind of thing. So when I go out to a situation where somebody's mentally ill, I know what to look for. I know how to communicate with them. But as a law enforcement officer, my job is to enforce the law. So if somebody's acting out or being aggressive, I have to act like a law enforcement officer for those who don't know mental health. But as mental health professionals, we know that there's another way you can affect them. So it's kind of a disadvantage to be placed out in the public to do things that you're not really equipped to do. And just training me to do it doesn't make me internally equipped to actually do those things.
Makes sense.
And Ch3, let me ask you this. I'm sure you've been glued to the TV at times when you've been watching a lot of these protests with people of color confronting police officers out there on the streets. Just your thoughts about when you're seeing and what it might be like for a black police officer to come face to face with black protesters. What is that like for a black police officer?
I mean, it's tough. My brother and my sister-in-law are currently in a major city being sergeants and had to confront that situation. And my brother explained it, I think, more adequately. It's tough to have to do your job and stand against these circumstances, kind of like this video is showing us right now, to be able to stand there and deal with that. You have your fears and your concerns for your safety and those around you, but you still have to push through and do what you're supposed to do. However, you have a softer side or a more a side to negotiate with where you explain to them, look, I know how things go in a big city. For instance, I grew up in Chicago. It's tough to grow up in the city with violence and fights and arguments and drugs and gangs, and you have to interact and weave through that. But then you also have to be people's cousins and friends and uncles, and you have to find a way through that. So as an officer, I'm standing in front of you, not only as a law enforcement officer, but as a brother, a cousin, an uncle. So what you're doing, if it's wrong, I have to let you know it's wrong, and you don't have to like it, but I have to let you know it's wrong and stand my ground if I'm on the right side.
Wow, that
Now,
makes
to
sense.
do that
Wow.
and then go back home makes it tough.
Yeah.
Because then when you get home, people are going to judge you for what you just did.
That is so complicated. But final question, and we're running out of time here, but how do we even begin to fix this? What, in your opinion, should be the first steps toward joining the communities together, the police communities and the community itself, and making that relationship better?
Okay, well, currently, there's a couple of things. Well, currently, I'm the president of Arizona Black Law Enforcement, and we hold a conference every year where we have the public, Black Lives Matter, state officials, officers, chiefs come in, and we do interactive panels and forums and classes and things like that. One of the things we're working on this year is going to be 2020 vision based on, what's going on looking back. And it's mainly on mental health and what can we do to reform. I'm working with Coach Bill Curry that used to coach at Kentucky and Alabama and Georgia Tech. It's a team approach. The team approach is, how do you organize 165 young men in an aggressive sport to perform, regardless of their backgrounds, regardless of their histories, cultures, ethnicities? How do you get them to all focus on one accord? And how do you hold them accountable to our mission of achieving winning games or being good men out in society, as well as being students? So if you can do it for colleges, if you can do it for pros, if you can do it for, Biddy basketball or Pop Warner, then it can be done in society as well. And that's the approach that we're taking to try and get some resolve in this. It's accountability and management.
Ch3, man, incredible insight. Thank you so much for sharing with us and talking with us today.
Anytime. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And stay with us, because this next segment right here on our Town Hall special, you don't want to miss the Karens coming up.